Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Breeze, Breezeway Productions' The Breeze. And we continue our coverage with this year's Slamdance Film Festival official selections. Very excited to have two amazing women here who are showcasing their film Bleeding Audio, which is a documentary that was accepted to this year's Slamdance Film Festival.
The Matches were always a band for me that I was like, how is this not massive?
They're the most insane band I've ever seen on stage.
That sort of energetic live show and that bouquet of songs, there was nothing to stop them.
Playing in the chalk will bleed.
We were dreaming big. We were dreaming real big.
We wanted to share our music. We wanted to be part of the community.
We really kind of wanted to tear down that barrier.
The Matches were on a strong upward trajectory for a long time, on the cusp of breaking big.
So it's kind of like, how did they not blow up? What was the Matches' downfall?
We've been on the road like pretty much non-stop since like 2003 or something like that.
Between 2004 and 2006, a huge segment of the population stopped buying music.
We basically just had to continuously tour.
To admit this thing I've been working on for 10 years, I don't think this is it. That's really freaking scary.
And I mean, I get it. We didn't really, I don't get it. I don't fucking know.
The love that they showed each other and the fans, it touched a lot of people's lives.
There's no level that means you made it. Any artist that gets to create something that changes anyone's life has made it.
We have producer Aaron Persley and director Chelsea Christer. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
hanging in there, you know.
Nice. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about the documentary. So tell us a little bit about Bleeding Audio.
Yeah, well, Bleeding Audio is a music documentary about a band called The Matches. We follow the highs and lows of their career while also further exploring how the digital age of music has changed for musicians. And it's a story of community. It's a story of triumph and failure.
Very nice. I very much enjoyed the film. I loved watching it because it brought me back to an era when I was growing up. And I listened to pretty much all of that type of music. So it really gave me a nice invigoration for that kind of spirit and good punk rock, which I really enjoyed. So Aaron, tell me a little bit about the producing of this project and what attracted you towards it.
Yeah, so I came onto the project about 3 years in. So Chelsea had been slaving away and really doing an amazing job. And we had met at a female filmmaker meeting, a group meeting. And so she talked about the project and it sounded really interesting. And so I said, oh, and let me see, the latest assembly or rough cut, whatever you have. And I watched the footage. And at that point, I think Chelsea had envisioned that it was a rough cut. I think we both realized it was probably more of an assembly because it was needing a little more work. But even in that sort of early messy form, I was like, oh, this is a really great story. I hadn't heard of the Matches before, so I was new. And I thought to myself, if someone who hadn't heard of the band or their music before was that captivated, that I knew it had a mass appeal. And I just love the storytelling part of it. When I saw the footage. And then of course I met Chelsea and she's just so passionate about the story. And I was really excited about working with her and sort of seeing what we could do. And that was 3 years ago. So it's been a really exciting journey, but haven't looked back. But that one, I think what's so great about the film is that it does really attract people from all backgrounds. You don't need to be a Matches fan, right? You can really relate to it in so many different levels. And that's what's so, I think, heartwarming and relatable about it.
Yeah, I related to it. There was a lot of really cool aspects that were enjoyable to me and very educational. You have a segment in there about music business, which I found very interesting since that isn't my field, but I know that a lot of musicians are looking for that type of education. And you also set up some interviews with some really good power players that are out there, Blink 182 and 311, and people that recorded these artists. How did you end up linking up with them, and then what was it like directing them, Chelsea, while you were doing those interviews?
Yeah, it was really exciting getting Mark Hoppus of Blink-182 and Nick Hexum of 311 involved. They were connected to the Matches because they had both produced a few songs for their second record, Decomposer. And so in going into this film, I knew I wanted to tell the Matches story, but I also wanted to tell a deeper story of the music industry as well. And who better to tell it than two music rock star giants who literally, you know, were at the peak of their careers in the 90s and then experienced that digital transition. And so I knew that we had to have people who could speak to that to give just a level of validity to that side of the story with their experience. And I mean, honestly, we reached out, they were instantly receptive. They like loved the Matches. I think the biggest struggle was just scheduling them because musicians love them to death. They're very they're very hard to schedule. And it was great speaking with them. You know, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, I don't get starstruck, but I really, you know, I just, it was just another interview for me. And I just, I really valued a lot of what they had to say. They were really forthcoming and generous with their time. And it turned into, you know, more of a dialogue than an interview in some places, just because they had so much to say that I found really interesting, but also, you know, I've learned so much about the industry at this point. I think they were a little surprised that I could keep up in some areas as well. So it was great having their involvement, and just their praise of the Matches was also just really humbling to hear as well.
Yeah, and it was cool because you learn about the Matches a little bit later on in the doc, because they were AKA the Locals back in the beginning years, which is how it was starting. And I like the aesthetic that you put together with introducing each of the characters and describing their personalities like it was reality show-esque. You had, like, you know, the picture come up and then showed like the way that they were growing up and like their personalities into it. Did you have that in mind while you were putting it together to give it that type of feel so you can really get to know each of them individually?
Ooh, that's a really good question. We haven't had that one. And you know, from the start, I had actually like note carded out character arcs for each guy. You know, we treated this whole storytelling process like it was a screenplay. You know, we broke down each character, we broke down each act, each beat, you know, we mapped everything to a story. But what was really interesting was in the telling of the film and introducing each character, we realized each character kind of got introduced at the point that they were brought into the band. And Aaron scheduled a test screening for us at the San Francisco Film Society, or I guess they call it SF Film right now. Sure. And some of the biggest feedback we got was, oh, you know, we kind of were confused. We weren't really getting to know the guys. And something that one of the latest edits that we did to the film was bring in those little character intros in the opening gambit of the film. And it was something that I had always kind of wanted to do as a fun thing, but we could never really figure out how to fit it in. And once we had that aha moment of, oh, let's just insert it into this little opening, you know, introduction, and we can have each character just sort of get their moment. It solved a lot of questions for viewers, and it was just really fun to put together. And in my interviews, just because each match is so distinctive in their personality and who they are, one of my favorite questions to ask was to have people describe each member to me. And it was remarkably consistent because of that distinctive personality. But it was just fun going through and picking and choosing the description of each guy, because it was on the nose.
It was a good move. It really made it personable to the viewer so that they can understand who they're looking at. And then you kind of have a relationship with these people as you're watching it, so you understand their journey, that they're going through it. So Aaron, we were talking about the producing aspect of it. While you were putting it together, what was the tallest hurdle that you had to overcome while you were making it? I'm sure that you've heard this one before.
Oh, yeah, so many hurdles. I mean,
all of them.
I mean, I think just in this big picture, of course, you know, making a documentary is I've said before, is like a marathon, right? So you have to kind of go the distance with the story. So there's lots of hurdles. I think maybe the biggest thing, well, there's, I guess, two things I think were the hardest. One is Chelsea did an amazing job getting so much footage and archival and imagery and photos, and it was really figuring out which were the best pieces to use.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when you have such a large volume of content, really sifting that through, I mean, you're sort of like thankful that you have so much to choose from, but it's also a little bit of a double-edged sword. So I think that was really challenging. And I think also with the one thing that I really loved about working with Chelsea on the story is, you know, she's really familiar with the band, and I was on a different perspective. So it was constantly sort of figuring out like how much is it sort of like too much of the inside sort of joke or inside game, and how much can sort of people relate to on the big picture. So I think having that sort of oscillation back and forth was really important. And of course we had some really intense edit sessions where we were really looking through a couple scenes and we'd go back and forth, and sort of keeping that in mind, right? Making it relatable to both the diehard fans of the matches, but also the larger audience. I think that back and forth was probably one of the most challenging.
Yeah, this was my first time hearing of the matches, to be honest. I knew a lot of the bands, what they were saying, were coming out in the vein of the record labels that they were hoping for. They're like going to Los Angeles and then playing their first show, and then wow, who was there? And then the spiraling, like that's the most LA story ever, of just showing up and being like, by the way, this happens. And you're like, well, all right, let's roll with it. It was very gritty. You know, it shows the starving band that's really hoping to get it and you introduce them. It's from the young age to the developing age, the rock and roll age, and then the change in the music age. And it's a great progression over time. So it's a great documentary feature that I very much enjoyed. And I'm curious, is there anything you'd like to say to the Slamdance organization for screening at this year's festival in the doc section? Either guy? No?
Well, I mean, just a huge thank you for selecting us. I know, I don't know how much I should say, but I'm really excited to be a part of this program. Looking at the other films that are on the slate, it's just such an honor to be side by side with them. And I mean, 2020 was rough. We had a lot of ups and downs in our festival journey. And so a huge highlight was getting that phone call that Aaron patched me in on in November, of hearing that we got into Slamdance. And it was a huge highlight. And I'm just so honored and grateful. It's a wonderful platform, and I love the accessibility that they're offering this year with their festival. I think it's really important and very exciting for indie film, what they're doing.
Absolutely. That's why every year I like to come and talk with the filmmakers that are there and showcase the work that is in Slamdance this year. Where can people go to check out Bleeding Audios? Maybe, the website or social media or things like that?
Yes, we are all over the place, but you can find us on the web, on our website, and join our mailing list at bleeding-audio.com. You can find us on social. Instagram is at Bleeding Audio Film. I think Facebook's also, I'm looking at Chelsea. Facebook is also Bleeding Audio Film, and then on Twitter as well.
All of them you can find below. That will be put into the video after we edit it together. So you can see all of them down there. And what's going on with the matches? Where are they all now? Like, is they thinking maybe about playing another show again or doing something, or like because they're still they still love music. They love music then, they love music now. What do you think?
Well, the plan was to premiere last year and then do like a little festival tour / show, try and incorporate both. But obviously, now with the pandemic, there's a lot of liability to consider, and also it's just not happening. So I know the matches, they fully intend to continue playing live shows at their leisure, but we'll see what we can. We'll see what we can get them to do. They're all, in their own lives now, and it's kind of cool that they do have the matches to come back to, but it is something that, it has to fit into their schedules now.
I get it. And until that happens, we have the film to watch, Bleeding Audio, a great documentary screening at this year's Slamdance Film Festival. Again, Aaron Persley and director Chelsea Christer, thank you so much for joining today on The Breeze, Breezeway Productions The Breeze, and stay tuned for more interviews from this year's official selections of the Slamdance Film Festival. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.